All right, ready to dive in? We're taking BuyPoint apart today. This platform says it can turn anyone into a stock market whiz, and they've given us a peek behind the curtain with this document, their stock analysis methods. Get this, they even said it took them 3 years to develop.
Yeah, 3 years is a long time. Shows they take it seriously, at least.
No kidding. You're obviously as interested in this as I am, and smart move wanting to know how they try to predict what the market's going to do next.
The cool part is how BuyPoint mixes two totally different ways of looking at stocks. Technical and fundamental analysis. It's like they're not just reading the map, they're out there actually hiking the trails.
I like that. So let's start where they do the technical stuff. First up, the EMA, or exponential moving average. I gotta admit, the first time I saw exponential moving average, I thought, nope, not for me. But it's actually not as scary as it sounds.
It's true. The name sounds way more complicated than it is.
Right. So in plain English, what's the EMA all about?
Think of the EMA like it's filtering the stock price. Imagine you're on a roller coaster. The EMA wouldn't follow every single up and down. It'd just show you if it's generally going up, down, or even sideways.
Okay, so if the EMA is going up, the stock price is generally going up too, even with those little dips here and there.
You got it. BuyPoint actually takes it a step further, though. They use something called crossovers, where a short-term EMA might cross paths with a longer-term one. This helps them see when the momentum might be changing, like figuring out when that roller coaster is about to switch directions.
So it's not just about the EMA going up or down, it's about how those short-term and long-term trends are playing together. Pretty clever. But what about those times when a stock's momentum might be changing really suddenly? Is there a way to catch that early on?
That's where the MACD comes in, the moving average divergence. Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know, but trust me, it's way more exciting than your morning coffee.
Okay, you've piqued my interest. Lay it on me.
So the MACD uses moving averages, but it adds this cool thing called divergence. Divergence basically means the MACD is telling a different story than the actual stock price. Picture this. You're watching a movie, the music is all happy and upbeat, but the characters are about to walk into a trap. It's that feeling of tension, like something's about to go down.
Okay, I'm starting to see what you mean. So if a stock is hitting new highs, but the MACD is lagging behind or looking weak, BuyPoint might see that as a bad sign.
Exactly. That could mean the party's almost over, even if the price hasn't crashed yet. And the opposite is true, too. If a stock is hitting new lows, but the MACD is flatlining or hinting at a comeback, BuyPoint might interpret that as a buying opportunity.
Wow, so it's like having a superpower to see the stock's momentum. You're not just looking at what's happening right now, you're trying to figure out those deeper changes in sentiment.
You got it. That's the beauty of the MACD. Now, BuyPoint also uses another indicator, the Elliott Wave Oscillator, or EWO, to look at momentum even more, but maybe we can get into that a bit later.
Sounds like a plan. Let's stick with the EMA and MACD for now. We've covered how BuyPoint uses charts and these technical indicators, but they don't just stop there, do they?
You're right. There's more to the story than just charts and graphs. BuyPoint also looks at the fundamental factors that make a company tick. Think of it like this. You can look at a painting just based on the colors and brushstrokes, right? But wouldn't it be way more interesting to get what the artist was thinking, the story behind it?
For sure. So what fundamentals are BuyPoint looking at?
They spend a lot of time looking at what institutional investors and company insiders are doing.
Okay, let's break that down. First up, institutional investors. Who are we talking about here, and why does a platform like BuyPoint even care about them?
Institutional investors are like the big dogs on Wall Street. Think like pension funds, mutual funds, hedge funds. They've got tons of money to invest.
So when these big players make a move, everyone's watching, right?
Totally. Their trading volume is huge, and that can really make the stock price jump up or down. But here's the thing about them that's super interesting. To BuyPoint, they've got access to the best research and analysis out there. These guys aren't just guessing. They're making very calculated moves.
So if BuyPoint sees a bunch of institutional investors buying a particular stock, that could be a hint that something good's coming.
You got it. It's like they're giving it their seal of approval. Of course, no investment strategy is perfect, but keeping track of these big players can give you a real edge.
Makes sense. Now, what about this insider trading? Isn't that illegal?
Yeah, there are definitely illegal kinds of insider trading, but BuyPoint's looking at the kind that's totally legal. In fact, it's encouraged. We're talking about tracking when company executives, those board members, the insiders, buy or sell their own company's stock.
Right, because they have to tell everyone about that, don't they? It's all out in the open.
Yeah, exactly. And that transparency is super valuable for platforms like BuyPoint. Think about it. who knows more about a company than the people running it?
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. It's kind of like if the head chef starts eating at his own restaurant every night, that's a good sign, right?
Exactly. If a CEO is loading up on their company's stock, it probably means they're feeling good about the future. But on the other hand, if they're selling off a big chunk of their shares, well, that might make you think twice.
Yeah, kind of like the chef is looking for a new job.
Yep, exactly. Now, it's important to remember that insiders sell their stock for all sorts of reasons. Maybe they need to pay off a house or something, or diversify their investments. But it's still a piece of the puzzle that BuyPoint uses to figure out a stock's potential.
So just to be clear, BuyPoint is looking at all these technical indicators, the charts, the momentum, and then they're adding in how those institutional investors are acting and whether company insiders are buying or selling their own stock.
That's it. They're not just relying on one thing, they're trying to put the whole picture together, blend the technicals with the fundamentals.
That's a lot to keep track of. So how does BuyPoint actually use all this info to help people decide what to do? This is where it gets good, right? All right, so we've covered a ton of ground. We talked about how BuyPoint uses those technical indicators like what the EMA and the MACD to find trends and figure out when momentum might be changing. And then we got into how they factor in what those Wall Street heavy hitters are doing, the institutional investors, and what we can learn from those company insiders buying or selling their own stock.
It really is like a puzzle, huh? Each piece on its own gives you a little clue, but when you start putting them all together,
Yeah.
that's when it gets interesting.
Totally. So how does BuyPoint take all these pieces, the technicals, the fundamentals, and tell investors what to do with them? What's the aha moment?
Well, they're looking for those times when all the signs point in the same direction, when the technical stuff and the fundamental stuff are telling the same story. Let me give you an example. Say a stock's been on a roll, price just climbing higher. BuyPoint's EMA is showing strong upward momentum, but then they see a bearish divergence in the MACD. Remember that movie analogy?
The music's still upbeat, but something feels off.
Exactly. So that's a potential warning sign right there. The MACD is hinting that the good times might be coming to an end. But BuyPoint wouldn't make a move based on just that, right? They need more.
Right. Of course, they need to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. They'd look for confirmation from their other indicators. Let's say at the same time, they see that some institutional investors have started selling off a big chunk of their shares in the company.
Okay, so now we're talking about a possible price drop. The technical picture's getting shaky. On T, those big players are heading for the exits.
Right. It's like those institutional investors know something that's not showing up in the stock price yet. Maybe they see risks that others are missing, or maybe they're just putting their money somewhere else. But that combination of signals, technical and fundamental, that would be a strong sell signal for BuyPoint.
Makes sense. Now, what about when a stock is down? Like after some bad news or something. How would BuyPoint play that?
That's when it gets really interesting. See, BuyPoint might look at that dip as a buying opportunity, but only if their analysis says the stock is oversold. Maybe the technical indicators show that the selling is overblown, like the stock has dropped way more than it should have based on the news.
So they're looking for times when the market might be freaking out over nothing, when fear is driving the price down more than it should.
You got it. And this is where the fundamentals come in again. If BuyPoint also sees that company insiders, the execs, the ones who know the business inside and out, if they're buying up shares while the price is down,
It's like they're saying, hey, we know things look kind of rough right now, but we still believe in this company. In fact, we're putting our money where our mouth is.
exactly. That combo, those technical signals saying the stock is oversold, plus those insiders buying that, would be a super bullish sign for BuyPoint.
Man, this is fascinating. We've learned how BuyPoint uses those technical indicators with those fundamental insights, like how those institutional investors and company insiders are acting. It just feels like a smarter way to pick stocks.
Absolutely. And remember, this is just scratching the surface. There's a whole world of stock market analysis out there. So many indicators, so many strategies.
I know, right? It's kind of overwhelming, but also really exciting. If the few indicators and things we talked about today can be so insightful, who knows what else is out there?
Right. The most important thing is knowledge. The more you know about how the market works, the better you'll be at navigating it.
I love that. So to wrap things up, this deep dive was just a little taste of what's possible. Keep learning, keep exploring, and hey, maybe BuyPoint is the tool to help you become a stock market master. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. See you next time, and happy investing.